Welcome to this module about the sales and purchase flows. Now that we have set up our master data, like customers, items and vendors, we are ready to get started to use this information to create a typical purchase and a typical sales flow. Let's have an overview. So in this module, I'm going to get started by explaining the data flow. It's important to understand where the data is coming from and where the data is going to in the application. Then we're going to have a look at process flows. I will start by introducing the purchase process flow from purchase order to purchase invoice. Then I'm also going to spend a little bit of time explaining what the purchase invoice looks like. Then we're going to do the same thing, but from the sales side in Dynamics NAV. We'll start the flow from sales quote to sales invoice. In this lesson, I will introduce you to the data flow. As a functional consultant or user, it's always very interesting to know where the data is coming from and where the data actually is going to. So let's have an overview. If we are going to get started in Dynamics NAV, the first thing that we usually are going to do is we're going to configure the application. And you're going to set it up for a new company, and then you're going to make use of setup tables and master data to create the basic information. Setup information can be, for example, for a sales process, what kind of warnings or credit warnings would I like to have when I'm going to be creating a sales order. Master data will be customers and vendors and items and so on. And all of the extra information will then be stored in supplemental and subsidiary data tables, like, for example, the salespersons, the postal codes, and so on. Once we have done the setup, then we are actually ready to get started to create transactions in our ERP system. And we're going to do this usually based on documents. A document will be a sales order, a purchase order, but it can also be, for example, a document used in the warehouse to encode a pick or a put away. Starting from the document, once we have entered all of the required information, we're going to click on the post button to have the sales or the purchase flow started and to be able to create invoices, purchase invoices, sales invoices. Now, a financial user is going to use worksheets to enter information directly into a journal. So starting from the transactional information, once the posting has been performed, information will be transferred into the posted transactions. So all of the posted documents, the posted invoices, the posted credit notes will be stored in the posted document data. Now, of course, Dynamics NAV is an ERP system which has a strong accounting functionality. So when we are going to perform postings in the application, it's going to be linked and also available in the ledger entries. So all of the posted sales, posted purchases, everything that has to do with customers, items, vendors, and VAT will end up in the ledger entry tables. For example, if you would like to create a report and you would like to know how a specific customer is performing, you can always find the information in the master table, the customer information, and then the posted transactions in the customer ledger entry table. So once we have an overview on the data flow, we're ready to get started to have a view on the sales and the purchase processes. In this lesson, I'm going to introduce you to the different process flows. Now, the best way to explain the process flows for purchase and sales is by using a diagram. So let's have a look. I will start with the typical process flow for the purchase process. Imagine that we are going to create a purchase, and everything is going to start by the user going into the application and then creating a purchase order. In the purchase order, we will select the vendor and, of course, also the items that we would like to buy from this vendor. Once we've assembled all of the information in the purchase order, we are ready actually to send it to the vendor. We're going to print it and send it via post, or we can also send an email. The vendor then is going to deliver the goods, and once the goods arrive in the warehouse, we are going to verify if everything is okay. We're going to create a reception, and we're going to post that receipt in the application. That's going to create a posted receipt document. Now, as from then, once the information and the goods have arrived in our company in the system, we are ready to update the inventory for the items that we have purchased. Once the inventory of the item has been updated, we are ready to create the posted invoice. And based on that invoice, we are, of course, ready to start to create a payment for our vendor. So we have the posted invoice document, we might print it, and then what we are going to do is we're also going to update the chart of accounts, the accounting information inside Dynamics NAV based on the information in the posted invoice. Then we're also going to update the vendor card. For example, the balance of the vendor is going to be updated, the payment is going to be registered also in the vendor information. Once we have the payment issued, the link in between the vendor card and the chart of accounts is also going to be created. So this is a general overview of the process flow of a purchase order. Of course, what you can also always do in Dynamics NAV is you can adapt the application to the way that the processes actually are running in your own company. Let's now have a look at the process flow for a typical sales process. So from the sales side, we have different starting points. And what we are usually going to do is we are going to create a sales quote where we are going to ask a quote to one or multiple vendors. Once the sales quote has been entered into the system and the quote has been accepted, we can then convert it to an order. Of course, you can always also skip the step of creating a sales quote and directly create an order itself. Once we have an order, a sales order in the system, and the information is actually assembled and released, then actually the warehouse department is going to take care of it to prepare a shipment. And once the shipment actually has been performed, we are going to also post that transaction in Dynamics NAV. This is then going to create a posted shipment document. Based on that document, we are going to decrease the inventory for the items that we have sold to our customer. Then we are going to create the invoice, which we're then also going to print, and we're going to send it to our customers so that they are actually ready and they have all of the information that they require to get started to create the payments. Once we have posted the invoice, there is of course also a link to the general ledger information. We're going to update the appropriate accounts in the system. Once the invoice also has been posted, there's also a link to our customer cards. The customer is going to create a payment. We are going to receive the payment. For example, if you go to your bank website, you will see the payment arriving in the system, and based on that you can also record that information in Dynamics NAV. Once the customer payment has been recorded, we're also of course going to update the customer card, the balance of the customer, and also the chart of accounts, the accounting part in the financial process of Dynamics NAV. In this lesson, the purchase process, I'm going to perform a small demonstration on how you can create a purchase order, and based on that, do the reception and create the invoice. So let's have a look. So here I am in the application, and because I'm working as a sales order processor, I'm going here into departments to be able to see the purchase documents. So I'm going into order processing. I can have a look at the purchase quotes, start from a purchase quote and convert it into a purchase order. But typically what we do is we start and we create the purchase order directly. So from within here, I'm going to click on the new button, which is going to create a new purchase document. The first step in this process is selecting the vendor. I'm going to select Progressive Home Furnishings. And as you will notice, once I select the number or the name of the vendor, then the other information is going to be filled in automatically. Now, what we can also see is that in order to continue in the process flow for purchase, I need to provide the invoice number from my vendor. So I'm going to type it in. You can see this because there was a red star in this field. It was a required field. Now the information in the header is complete, and I'm going to, for example, say here that I'm going to buy an item, and I'm going to select my bicycle. If you enter the number, the description is coming over automatically. And I'm going to set up the order for the reception to occur in the blue location, and I will order, let's say, 10 bicycles. Once the information has been ordered, you enter, for example, the item number and the quantity, and depending on the unit cost and some discounts, the price is also entered automatically in the system. Of course, you can always override that if you want to. Now my order is ready to receive. As you can see, the system has prepared the quantity to receive field. And once I'm going to receive it, it's going to update the quantity received field itself. Now in order to receive the purchase, I'm going to click on the Post button. This is going to present me with some choices. I can do a receive an invoice, which means that the system is going to receive the order and also automatically create and process the invoice. Now, if I'm working in a bigger company, I might have different departments. One department which is going to create the purchase orders, another one is going to take care of the receptions in the warehouse, and in the financial department to create the invoice. That's why I can always split up the process into different steps and first perform the receive and later the invoicing. Now in this case, I'm going to receive all 10 pieces of the bicycles that I have ordered. What I can also do, for example, is I can, if the vendor isn't able to deliver all of the pieces or the complete quantity, I can change the 10 into another number, for example 8, and then first receive the first 8 pieces and then later the other 2. So I'm going to click on the receive button. The system is now has created the receipt. I can always verify this inside of the order itself, and we can see now that the quantity to receive is 0 and the quantity received is actually 10. But I haven't invoiced this order yet. The quantity to invoice is also 10. If I go into Navigate, I can always have a look at the receipt document which was created for my purchase. So now I'm actually ready to invoice this purchase order, and in order to do that, I'm going to click again on the post button, or I'm going to use the shortcut F9. I'm going to create the invoice by selecting invoice in here. Remember, if you select the last option, the application is going to take care of everything in one step. So I'm clicking on OK, and I have an error message. That's normal because I might have entered the wrong invoice number from a vendor. The system is going to verify this while it's going to post. So I'm just going to change the vendor invoice number, and I'm just going to restart the posting process. Now I'm going to create my invoice. The invoice has been created, so let's have a look in the application itself. I'm going to have a look here in the posted documents. Here I can see the posted purchase receipts if I want to. And if I go here into posted purchase invoices, here at the bottom, we'll be able to see the last invoice that has been created. I can see all of the information that I entered, of course in read-only mode, because this document has been completely processed and integrated with my accounting. I can see the item that I ordered, the quantity and so on. And from within here, if I want to, I'm also able to print the invoice. And then I can archive it, for example. So here I have an example of the printed invoice. If I would now also go into the item itself, you're also going to notice that the inventory for this item has increased with 10 pieces. I also have the Navigate button on which I can click, and this Navigate button, started from the posted invoice, is going to show me the related entries. For example, my vendor my vendor ledger entries have also been updated with the new invoice that was created. So this is a small example on how we can start to create a purchase order and then create the receipt, and based on that the purchase invoice. In the following demonstration, I'm going to show you how you can create a sales quote, convert it into a sales order, based on that create the shipment and then the sales invoice. Let's have a look. So here I am in the application. And I'm going here to sales quotes. For example, I'm going to create a new quote. And based on that, I'm going to select the customer for which I'm going to create the quote. The information is coming in automatically, the customer information, the order date, document date, and so on. I can also link this sales quote to a salesperson, and I might also enter a requested delivery date. Next, I'm going to select the item or the resources that I would like to sell to this customer. So I'm going to select the bicycle. I'm going to say that I'm going to ship it from the blue location. And I'm going to select the 6 bicycle because that's what the customer has entered. And you're able to see pricing information and so on. Then I'm going to communicate this sales quote. I'm going to print it, maybe email it, send it to the customer. And then if they agree, if they send the confirmation, I will be able to convert this quote into an actual sales order. So if I click on this button, I'm going to convert the quote into an order. An order has now been created with the number 1021. So this means that the person who is responsible for sales orders can now have a look in the list of sales orders, go to 1021. which should be in here. And then all of the information is already assembled, and they don't have to type it over anymore. So I can see my customer, I can see my document dates. I can also enter, for example, an external document number if my customer has provided me with one. I can see the bicycle. It's going to be shipped from the blue location, the quantity, and all of the other information that I have available. No shipment has been created. I need to ship 6 bicycles. And once they have been shipped, I'm also, of course, going to invoice 6 bicycles. So I'm now ready to start to create the shipments. I'm going to click on the posting button. Again, I can divide the process into multiple steps. Someone can perform the shipment, someone else can then create the invoice, or I can able to do both of the processes in one go. It all depends on the setup of the application and the processes that you have implemented in your company. So I'm now going to create the shipment. If any information was missing, I would have received an error message, which wasn't the case. And now I can see that actually my bicycles have been shipped. What I can also see is I can have a look here at the related documents for this sales order. So if I'm going to click on shipments, we'll be able to see the shipment which was created. I can also have a more detailed view on the shipment. And if I want to, I can also print it, for example. So the item has been shipped, then it will be received by the customer, and the next step would then be to create the invoice. I'm going to click on the posting button again, and I'm going to create the invoice for this shipment and for this order. Voila, the invoice has been created. And next, what I can do is I can have a look in the posted documents. And I'm going to have a look here in the posted sales invoices, and here at the bottom, a new invoice has been created for my customer. I can see the information. I can see my 6 bicycles, the pricing information, VAT, and also some shipment information. Based on this, I also have a view on the statistics of this invoice and sales process. And I'm also able to print the invoice. This will be the document, for example, which I will print and then send to my customer, upon which they can get started in their payment process. Now, instead of printing the invoice, I'm also able to email the invoice directly to the customer. And if I'm going to click here on the email button, of course, an email is going to be generated. And in that email, I'm also able to enter some information. But as you can see, all of the information will be fetched automatically from the customer master data. I can just have to complete the message, but even that can be set up using templates. So I'm going to click on OK. The email is going to be generated and sent to my customer. So this gives you an overview on how you can get started from a sales quote, convert it into a sales order, do a shipment, then create the invoice based on the shipment. What you can also notice, once the complete process has been followed, I can select my order and click on the Navigate button. Dynamics NAV is an ERP system, and there's an integration with the general ledger and the accounting. And by selecting the Navigate, I will be able to see for this posted sales invoice, which are the GL entries, general ledger entries that have been created. I can have a look at them, see what happens. I can also have a look at the customer ledger entries which have been created for my customer. So in here I can see an invoice was created. And also have a view on the value entries and all of the other related informations in my accounting. So we are now at the end of the sales and purchase process module. Let's review it together. So what I explained and demonstrated is the data flow in the application. Where is the data coming from and where is the data going towards when we are performing sales and purchase processes. Then I demonstrated the process flows from purchase order to purchase invoice. We can create a purchase invoice, and a very similar flow from sales quote to sales invoice. Now, as you have seen, Dynamics NAV is an ERP system. All of the departments are completely integrated, and in the complete process flow from sales and purchase, you can see everything is taken care of by the system, and the way that you are managing your processes in the company are all foreseen in the application.